different people, same pain, different jobs, same burnout, different relationships, same ending. Why? At some point in your life, you stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? Because that question assumes you're unlucky, that life is random, that you just keep meeting the wrong people at the wrong time. But then something shifts, and a more dangerous question appears. What part of me keeps choosing this? Most people never ask that question. It's easier to blame circumstances, easier to say I chose the wrong partner, or this industry is toxic, or I just have bad luck, and sometimes those things are true. But when the same kind of pain shows up again and again and again in different forms with different faces in different places, that's no longer coincidence. That's a pattern. And patterns don't repeat to punish you. Life doesn't repeat to hurt you. It repeats to reveal something unconscious, something you didn't choose deliberately, something you didn't even know you were carrying. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't consciously choose your life patterns. You act them out. And until you see them clearly, they feel like fate. In this video, we're not going to give you motivational slogans. We're not going to tell you to think positive or manifest better outcomes. Instead, we're going to slow this down and look deeply. You'll understand why life repeats patterns like a loop, why trauma behaves like a fractal, repeating at different scales, why awareness alone doesn't actually break the cycle, and most importantly, how real freedom doesn't begin by escaping the pattern, but by finding choice inside it. So stay with me, because what you're about to see may completely change how you understand your past and the future you keep walking into. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never hear. You don't choose your patterns consciously. You don't wake up one morning and decide I'm going to repeat the same pain again. You act them out, and the reason isn't moral weakness. It's not lack of intelligence. It's biology. Your brain is not designed to seek what's best for you. It's designed to seek what's familiar. And familiar does not mean healthy. It simply means predictable. From a nervous system perspective, predictability equals survival. Even if what's predictable hurts. This is why someone who grew up with emotionally distant parents often finds themselves attracted to emotionally unavailable partners. Not because they enjoy neglect, but because their nervous system recognizes it. Distance feels normal. Coldness feels like home. Someone raised in a chaotic household may say they want peace, yet feel strangely bored in calm relationships and magnetically pulled toward drama. And the child who learned early that love meant being good, quiet, accommodating, easy to manage, often grows into an adult who is unconsciously drawn to controlling people. Because control feels like structure, and structure feels safe, the nervous system mistakes familiarity for love. That's the mechanism most people never see. So when a relationship feels intense, or a job feels exhausting but strangely addictive, or a life situation feels painful yet hard to leave, it's often not because it's good for you. It's because it matches an old internal map. And here's where most people get stuck. They think the solution is external. If I just move to a new city, if I finally leave this relationship, if I change careers. And sometimes those changes are necessary. But if the underlying pattern stays unconscious, it quietly follows you. New city, same loneliness, new partner, same emotional dynamic, new job, same burnout. The faces change, the setting changes, but the structure remains. That's why repeating pain can feel like fate. Like life has it out for you. Like there's some invisible force pulling you back into the same ending. But it's not fate, it's pattern. And here's the small but crucial lesson in this part. A pattern you can't see feels like destiny. But the moment you begin to see it, it loses its grip. Not because it disappears, but because it's no longer running the show from the shadows. And this brings us to something even deeper. Because once you start noticing these patterns, life doesn't stop repeating them immediately. In fact, sometimes they get louder. Not to punish you, but to get your attention. And that's where the next layer begins. Because as Alan Watts once suggested, life doesn't scream at you first. It taps you on the shoulder and keeps tapping until you finally turn around and look. Life whispers first, then it knocks, then it hits. Alan Watts often pointed out something that sounds almost too simple, yet changes how you see everything. Life isn't trying to teach you lessons. It isn't moral. It isn't personal. Life doesn't sit there planning punishments or rewards. It responds. It mirrors your inner state back to you over and over until you notice. When something keeps repeating, it's not because the universe wants you to suffer. It's because something inside you hasn't been acknowledged yet. Think about how this shows up in real life. When you don't set boundaries, you don't suddenly get freedom. You meet people who cross them. When you struggle to say no, you don't get understanding. You get overextended, exhausted, taken for granted. When you ignore your own fatigue, keep pushing, keep proving, keep performing, your body eventually forces the conversation. Burnout returns, again and again, not as punishment, but as feedback. Life keeps tapping you on the shoulder until you turn around and at first the tap is gentle, a sense of discomfort, a quiet dissatisfaction, a subtle anxiety you can't quite explain. If you ignore it, the knock gets louder. Conflict, breakdowns, patterns becoming harder to deny. And if you still don't listen, life hits, collapse, relationships ending the same way they always do. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. A helpful way to understand this is through something very ordinary. A pattern is like an exam you didn't complete. If you skip the test, you don't fail forever. You just have to take it again and again, or like an unread email. You can archive it, ignore it, delete the notification. But until you open it and actually read what it says, it keeps coming back. That's how patterns work. They're not obstacles on your path. They are the path pointing directly to something you've been avoiding. Here's the insight most people resist. What you refuse to feel, life forces you to experience. If you refuse to feel anger, life gives you situations that make you furious. If you refuse to feel grief, loss keeps showing up. If you refuse to feel your own needs, life surrounds you with people who ignore them. Not to punish you, but to bring those feelings into consciousness. And this is where things get tricky. Because once you start seeing this, it's tempting to think awareness alone will stop the cycle. That if you understand the pattern, it should dissolve. But understanding is only the beginning. Because knowing why something happens is not the same as being able to choose differently when it appears. And that's where the next layer lives. Because patterns don't just exist in your thoughts. They live in your body, in your nervous system, in your reflexes, in what feels safe, even when it hurts. And to understand that, we need to look at how trauma behaves, not linearly, but fractally. Trauma doesn't disappear. It changes scale. This is where many people get confused. They think trauma is something that belongs to the past, a memory, a story, something that happened back then. But trauma doesn't behave like a timeline. It behaves like a fractal. A fractal is a structure that looks the same no matter how closely you zoom in or out. From far away or up close, the pattern repeats. Trauma works the same way. You can see it in your family, in your romantic relationships, in your work life, even in the way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. Different contexts, same structure. For example, imagine a child who grew up being emotionally overlooked, not abused, not abandoned, just unseen. That child learns something very early. My feelings don't matter enough to stop the world. Fast forward to adulthood. That same pattern shows up again, just at a different scale. They fall in love with someone who doesn't really listen. They work under a boss who never acknowledges their effort. And slowly, almost invisibly, they begin to dismiss their own emotions before anyone else can. I'm overreacting. It's not a big deal. I'll deal with it later. Same pattern, different faces. This is why trauma can feel so elusive. You change relationships, you change jobs, you grow intellectually, and yet the same emotional outcomes keep resurfacing. Because trauma isn't stored as a story you can reason away. The body doesn't live in time. It doesn't know then versus now. It only knows patterns of safety and threat. This is the mistake many people make when they say, "That was a long time ago, I'm over it." Intellectually, maybe you are. But your nervous system doesn't update itself through insight alone. It updates through experience. And until the body experiences something different, not just thinks about it, it keeps running the same reflex. That's why trauma isn't the memory. Trauma is the reflex. The flinch before you speak, the urge to over-explain, the collapse when conflict appears, the attraction to what feels familiar, even when it hurts. And here's the quiet lesson in this part. If trauma is fractal, then healing has to meet it at the level it lives, not just in your thoughts, but in your choices, your pauses, your bodily responses. This also explains why awareness can sometimes feel frustrating. You can see the pattern clearly and still fall into it, not because you're failing, but because awareness is only the beginning. It shines a light. It doesn't retrain the reflex. And that brings us to the next piece. Because once you see the pattern and once you understand its roots, the real question becomes, why doesn't awareness alone break the cycle? And why do so many people feel stuck even after they get it? That's what we need to look at next. Here's the paradox almost no one talks about. Awareness doesn't free you, it destabilizes you. This is where many people get stuck, especially those who consume a lot of psychological or spiritual content. They watch the videos, they read the books, they can name their wounds. I have abandonment trauma. I have attachment issues. I know why I do this. And yet, the same choices keep happening. The same relationships, the same dynamics, the same endings. This isn't failure, it's misunderstanding how change actually works. Because insight and transformation are not the same thing. Insight does not equal nervous system change. And understanding something does not automatically make your body feel safe choosing differently. Patterns don't live in your thinking mind. They live in your reflexes. In the moment when your chest tightens, when your heart speeds up, when something feels off or boring or too quiet. Here's a common example. Someone realizes they've been repeatedly choosing emotionally toxic partners. They finally see it clearly. They promise themselves, never again. Then they meet someone stable, consistent, respectful, emotionally available, and something strange happens. There's no spark, no intensity, no chemistry. They feel restless, unstimulated, almost repelled, and they think, this must not be it. But what's actually happening is much simpler and much deeper. The body resists what feels unfamiliar, even if it's healthy. Calm can feel like emptiness. Stability can feel like boredom. Safety can feel wrong, not because it is, but because the nervous system hasn't learned to associate those states with connection yet. This is why awareness can feel uncomfortable. It removes the illusion, but it doesn't immediately give you a new sense of safety. A helpful way to think about awareness is this. Awareness is like turning on the light in a cluttered room. Suddenly you can see everything. The mess, the dust, the things you've been stepping over for years. But seeing the mess doesn't clean the room. You still have to pick things up, one piece at a time. And that process can feel disorienting, because you're no longer unconscious, but you're not free yet either. You're in between. And this is the small but crucial lesson here. Awareness is not the end of the work. It's the beginning of responsibility. Once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. But seeing doesn't mean you can instantly act differently. Change happens when awareness meets practice, when insight meets repetition, when the body slowly learns that a new choice won't destroy it. And that leads us to the final shift. Because freedom doesn't come from escaping patterns, it comes from developing choice inside them. Not all at once, not dramatically, but moment by moment. And that's what integration really looks like. Here's the shift that changes everything. You don't escape patterns, you outgrow them. Most people imagine freedom as running away from a relationship, from a job, from a version of themselves they no longer want to be. But real freedom doesn't begin with escape, it begins with choice. Not dramatic, life-altering choices, but small, almost invisible ones. Because patterns don't collapse through force. They dissolve through awareness plus action. And that action doesn't happen in your thoughts, it happens in your body. Here's a simple integration framework that works because it's grounded in how the nervous system actually changes. First, notice. Not the story, not the explanation, the sensation, the tightness in your chest, the urge to explain yourself. The anxiety that appears right before you say yes when you mean no. This is the moment the pattern enters the body. Second, pause. Not forever. Just long enough to interrupt the reflex. A breath, a beat, a few seconds where you don't immediately react. This pause is powerful because it creates space, and space creates choice. Third, choose differently, slightly. Not perfectly, not heroically, just 1%. If your pattern is silence, say one honest sentence. If your pattern is overgiving, slow down instead of pouring more out. If your pattern is endurance, leave earlier than usual. These choices might feel awkward, uncomfortable, even wrong at first. That's normal, because your nervous system is learning something new. Small conscious choices collapse unconscious loops, not overnight, but over time. Each time you choose differently inside the pattern, you send a quiet message to the body. This is survivable. This doesn't destroy me. This is allowed. And slowly, safety begins to shift. This is the part many people skip. They want transformation without practice, freedom without discomfort. But integration is not about erasing your past. It's about relating to it differently. And here's the core lesson of this entire video. Awareness gives you choice. Choice builds freedom. Not by eliminating patterns, but by loosening their grip. You don't wake up one day completely healed. You wake up one day with a little more space, a little more agency, a little more self-trust. And that's enough. Because freedom isn't the absence of patterns, it's the ability to meet them consciously. And as we bring this to a close, there's one final question worth sitting with. Not to answer quickly, but to let echo. What pattern is asking for your attention right now? And what would one small, conscious choice look like today? Different people, same pain. But now you know why. Not because life is cruel, not because you're broken, not because you keep messing up. Life doesn't repeat patterns to punish you. It repeats them because something in you is still asking to be seen, to be felt, to be integrated. Patterns aren't proof that you're failing. They're signals. Quiet ones at first, then louder, then impossible to ignore. And once you see that, the story changes. You stop asking, why does this keep happening to me? And you begin asking something far more powerful. What is this pattern asking me to notice about myself? Because awareness doesn't erase the pattern. It doesn't magically dissolve old reflexes or rewrite the nervous system overnight. What it does is subtler and more radical. It gives you choice. Choice to pause. Choice to feel instead of flee. Choice to respond instead of repeat. Not perfectly. Not all at once. Just enough to begin loosening the loop. So take a moment. Not to judge. Not to fix. Just to notice. What pattern do you see repeating in your life right now? In your relationships, your work, the way you treat yourself when things get hard? And what would one small conscious choice look like today? Not a dramatic breakthrough, just one moment of awareness meeting action. If this resonated, stay here. This isn't a space for motivation or quick answers. We explore depth, patterns, and the quiet freedom that comes from seeing clearly. Because real change doesn't come from running away from yourself. It comes from finally turning around and meeting what's been waiting for your attention all along.